A man who tolerates disrespect does not merely suffer an insult, he forfeits his authority. The moment you allow someone to speak to you with contempt, to dismiss your value, to mock your presence without consequence, you signal to the world that you are prepared to be ruled. Disrespect is never neutral. It is an attack cloaked in words, posture, or silence. It is a strategic move in the game of power, a probe to test your limits. And if you tolerate it once, you give permission for it to continue. Weak men rationalize disrespect. They tell themselves it's not worth the confrontation, that the offender didn't mean it, that peace is more important than pride. But peace without respect is submission. A man cannot lead, cannot protect, cannot command, if others do not fear the cost of crossing him. Disrespect, when allowed to root, becomes the standard by which others measure your worth. It becomes the lens through which they interpret your words, your actions, your very presence. Those who aim to control you often begin with subtle forms of disrespect. They interrupt you, mock you in jest, ignore your ideas, or challenge you in front of others. These are not harmless behaviors. They are calculated steps to erode your status. A man who is not feared is not respected, and a man who is not respected becomes disposable. In courts, in companies, in relationships. Disrespect is how the weak test the strong. If you allow it, you fail the test. Disrespect is not just a personal slight, it is a political signal. It tells everyone watching that you do not believe yourself worthy of defense. And once you abandon that belief, you will find yourself surrounded by wolves who no longer hide their teeth. Your tolerance becomes their opportunity. Your silence becomes their victory. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. And if you accept humiliation, then humiliation becomes your new station. There is no virtue in passivity. Do not confuse silence with patience. Do not confuse endurance with honor. A man must be a mirror, reflect respect when given, reflect consequences when denied. If someone chooses to undermine your value, you must respond with action. Not emotional outbursts or petty revenge, but strategic correction. Power is maintained by boundaries. When a boundary is crossed and no penalty is paid, the boundary ceases to exist. To tolerate disrespect is to invite disorder. A disrespected man cannot lead his household, cannot command his peers, cannot govern himself. He becomes a hollow figure, present in body, absent in influence. Others may smile to his face, but they will plot behind his back. His words will carry no weight, his presence no pressure. Disrespect is a cancer. Left untreated, it spreads. It infects your self-perception, your confidence, your ability to stand tall when it matters most. Those who rise in life, who build power and protect it, do not tolerate disrespect under any disguise. They understand that every inch given becomes a mile taken, that even a jest can be a jab in disguise. That respect is not something you beg for. It is something you command, and you command it by drawing the line once and enforcing it forever. To excuse betrayal is to participate in your own downfall. When someone violates your trust, they are revealing more than just a moment of weakness. They are exposing their nature. A traitor does not betray by accident. It is a calculated decision, a test of your blindness, a wager that your forgiveness will be easier to win than your punishment. And when you accept that betrayal without consequence, you confirm their wager was correct. You invite further betrayal. You remove the fear that restrains treachery. Loyalty is not merely a moral ideal. It is the cement of any alliance. Once that cement cracks, the structure begins to decay. A man who forgives betrayal without extracting a price weakens the discipline that binds those around him. People respect boundaries, but they are ruled by consequences. If the disloyal suffer no penalty, the loyal begin to question the value of their fidelity. They begin to see loyalty as a fool's burden, while betrayal becomes a strategy without cost. Even worse, betrayal tolerated breeds more than just further betrayal. It breeds contempt. The traitor, seeing no retaliation, concludes you are too soft to resist, too desperate to maintain peace, too afraid to be alone. Your silence signals fear. Your understanding is mistaken for cowardice. And your desire to preserve harmony is read as weakness. You lose the ability to inspire fear or command loyalty. You become vulnerable not only to the one who betrayed you, but to every observer watching how you respond. A wise man does not seek revenge for the sake of his ego. He punishes betrayal to preserve order. In war, in politics, in love, the traitor is more dangerous than the enemy. The enemy strikes from the front, but the traitor hides behind the mask of trust. He consumes your strength from within, and if that cancer is not removed quickly, it spreads to every organ of your life. Others learn from the traitor's survival that you can be exploited without cost. That lesson is deadly. There are those who plead for second chances, who cry and confess once caught. But their tears are tactics. Their remorse is often nothing more than regret that they were exposed. A man who plans to betray you does not care for your trust. He sees it as a weapon he can use against you. And if he finds that weapon still available after the first strike, he will not hesitate to strike again, this time deeper. To excuse betrayal is to train others that your loyalty is a shield they can pierce without fear. It is to declare that you value peace over justice, comfort over discipline, and image over integrity. A leader who surrounds himself with those who have once turned against him prepares his own execution. Even in mercy, there must be strategy. Mercy without caution is suicide. One does not hold a snake in bare hands because it once played tame. In every realm of life, personal or political, trust must be guarded like a fortress. When that fortress is breached, you do not simply patch the wall and invite the enemy back inside. You reinforce the wall, sharpen the weapons, and remember who once opened the gate from within. To endure mediocrity, whether in yourself or in those you keep close, is to choose decay over growth. A man who accepts average will never command greatness. Mediocrity is not a neutral state. It is a disease of the mind, a slow erosion of potential. It creeps in when ambition dies and excuses take its place. The man who tolerates it becomes indistinguishable from the crowd, swallowed by the masses, forgotten in the dust of those who dared to demand more of themselves. Surrounding yourself with people who lack ambition, who make excuses instead of progress, is a guaranteed way to remain stagnant. They will drain your energy, dull your edge, and poison your standards. They will ridicule your hunger, mock your discipline, and call your drive an obsession. They do this not because they care, but because your excellence reflects their inadequacy. They seek to bring you down to their level because they are incapable of rising to yours. And the moment you allow their influence to take root, you begin the descent into the same mediocrity you once despised. The man who tolerates mediocrity in himself is worse. He lies to himself, calls laziness balance, calls quitting wisdom, and labels failure as growth. Without ever learning from it, he becomes his own jailer, locking himself inside routines that require no effort and deliver no reward. He celebrates small victories to avoid confronting the large battles he continues to lose. He calls himself humble while hiding from his own potential, fearing the burden of responsibility that comes with greatness. There is no honor in being average. The world does not reward good intentions, it rewards results. A man must strive to become exceptional not for vanity, but for survival. In a world ruled by the strong, the competent, and the relentless, mediocrity is a slow execution. You are not owed success, and you will not stumble into it by chance. It must be hunted, fought for, and earned daily. Those who treat excellence as optional find themselves serving those who did not. A powerful man holds high standards, first for himself, then for others. He demands excellence in every action, every decision, every alliance. He understands that greatness is not a moment, but a discipline. It is forged in discomfort, built through sacrifice, and protected by ruthless self-awareness. He does not excuse failure. He studies it. He does not pity weakness. He corrects it. And he does not permit mediocrity, for he knows it is a silent thief that robs men of their future while lulling them to sleep with comfort. To allow mediocrity is to build your life on sand. No legacy is born from comfort. No empire is built on compromise. Every step away from excellence is a step toward irrelevance. A man must be at war with anything that drags him down, including the weaker parts of himself. He must seek the company of the disciplined, the sharp, the relentless. He must reject the soft approval of the average and choose instead the hard, earned respect of the extraordinary. To overlook manipulation is to walk willingly into the hands of your own enemies. Manipulation is not always loud or obvious. It often wears the face of charm, care, or concern. It comes disguised as advice, disguised as love, disguised as loyalty. The manipulator does not strike you directly. They twist your perception until you no longer trust your own judgment. They plant seeds of doubt, redirect your focus, and slowly reshape your decisions to serve their ends, not yours. And if you tolerate it, you surrender your autonomy without even realizing it. A man who cannot recognize manipulation becomes a puppet, not a player. His time, energy, and emotions are hijacked by those who see him not as an ally, but as a resource to be extracted. Manipulators thrive on weakness. They study your patterns, your insecurities, your desires, and use them to build a prison made of illusions. They do not need force when they have your mind. You follow them, defend them, and even thank them as they drain you of power. Manipulators are not always obvious enemies. They are often the closest ones, the partner who trips you into submission, the colleague who flatters you before undermining your position, the friend who plays victim to gain control of your time and sympathy. These people know how to appear harmless while orchestrating chaos. Their greatest weapon is your ignorance, and the moment you excuse their behavior, you begin to serve their interests over your own. You stop leading and start reacting. A wise man does not view manipulation as a personal slight. He sees it as a threat to his command. When someone seeks to manipulate you, they are attempting to write your script, to control your future by steering your present. Tolerating this is worse than tolerating an open insult, because manipulation is deception with purpose. It is a quiet theft of your will. It allows your enemies to remain unseen while they shape your choices. There is no strength in being easily influenced. A man must rule his own mind. He must develop the ability to detect false motives, to read the invisible hands that try to move him. He must watch how people speak, how they act when denied, how they respond to silence. Manipulators often reveal themselves not when they are winning, but when they are confronted with resistance. Their mask slips when they lose control of the narrative. That is when you must strike, not with emotion, but with clarity. The greatest manipulators aim not to control your actions directly, but to shift your values. Once your standards are compromised, you become easier to move, easier to mold. You begin to make decisions that betray your own interests while believing you are acting freely. That illusion is their victory. And if you are too naive, too soft, too eager to see the good in others, you will not see the strings being pulled until it is too late. To overlook manipulation is to allow your throne to be seized in silence. While you believe you are in control, someone else is steering the course. While you think you are choosing freely, you are being guided like cattle through invisible fences. Power is not just about strength, it is about awareness. The man who does not understand the motives of those around him is unfit to lead and unworthy of trust. To justify inconsistency is to erode the very foundation upon which power, respect, and leadership are built. A man who cannot be trusted to remain stable in thought or action becomes a liability to himself and to all who rely on him. Inconsistency is not a harmless flaw. It is a warning sign. It reveals a lack of discipline, a lack of conviction, and most dangerously, a lack of loyalty to one's own word. People do not follow those who shift with every breeze. They follow those who stand unmoved in the storm. An inconsistent man speaks with passion one day and acts with hesitation the next. He declares bold intentions, but follows them with weak execution. He adjusts his principles to please the crowd, to avoid conflict, to buy temporary peace. But what he loses in the process is far greater than he gains. He loses the fear of his enemies, the respect of his allies, and the trust of his inner circle. No one invests deeply in a man who changes direction without cause. Inconsistency breeds confusion. When others do not know what to expect from you, they do not prepare to follow. You force them to prepare for betrayal. They become cautious, defensive, skeptical, and once they begin to doubt your direction, they begin to plan their own. Loyalty cannot survive in an environment of uncertainty. It needs structure. It needs predictability. Even a harsh leader is preferable to a weak one, for at least his actions can be anticipated. The inconsistent man offers nothing but doubt. A man who tolerates inconsistency within himself becomes a slave to his impulses. He allows his emotions to dictate his actions. One moment he is driven by ambition, the next by fear. One day he punishes disloyalty, the next he rewards it. His followers are left guessing. His enemies are left smiling. He becomes easy to manipulate, for all it takes to move him is to shift his mood. Those who watch him closely begin to see the patterns of his instability, and they use them like tools. Even in solitude, inconsistency is dangerous. It infects your habits, your discipline, your sense of self. A man who wakes with conviction and sleeps with regret builds nothing. His plans crumble because his commitment wavers. His goals fade because his vision is clouded by indecision. Greatness demands alignment between word and deed, thought and action, principle and behavior. Without that, you are not a man of power, you are a man of noise. The world tests your consistency at every turn. It tempts you to compromise when you're tired, to shift course when you're challenged, to abandon your standards when you're afraid of loss. If you yield even once, you begin to decay. Each rationalized inconsistency weakens your spine, your reputation, your will. Soon, you no longer recognize the man in the mirror. You see a creature shaped by circumstance, not by choice. A man of power carves his path with clarity. His decisions, even if unpopular, are rooted in unwavering purpose. He does not move for applause, nor does he bow to convenience. He understands that consistency is not about being rigid, but about being dependable, deliberate, and unshakable in pursuit of a greater aim. A man who wishes to rise must first learn what he must never allow. Tolerating disrespect invites decay. Excusing betrayal breeds enemies within. Enduring mediocrity shackles potential. Overlooking manipulation seeds control. Justifying inconsistency rots the very spine of power. Each behavior, when accepted, becomes a crack in the armor, a silent surrender to weakness disguised as tolerance. The path to strength is paved not just by what you do, but by what you refuse to endure. A ruler of his fate is first a guardian of his standards. Let others leave soft and blind. You must see clearly, act decisively, and above all, never apologize for drawing the line.